Stand by for broadcast.
You're listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations.
Hello, I'm Squadron Leader Peter Lisney, and in this episode we find out how the UK's busy airspace is kept safe.
We're not in the business of delaying airliners and people going on their holidays.
So it's not just fast jet squadrons practicing their tactical daily business. It's also ships firing missiles or guns, and the land rangers as well if they're firing mortars, for example, going up to 10,000 feet. You don't want anything flying through that.
Every single day will feel rewarding and something that you don't always get in life, that constant job satisfaction.
Also, in this episode, we'll reheat a few stories just in case you missed them, and we'll be finding out who is under the hat this week.
Best location you've served?
I've been on an Eagle scheme in the Robson Resilience Centre in Bavaria.
Find out who is under the hat at the end of this episode. Now, the UK has some of the most congested airspace in the world. Ensuring military and civilian aircraft don't get in the way of each other is just one of the reasons why 78 Squadron is co-located at National Air Traffic Services. Flight Lieutenant Chris Sully went to the Air Traffic Control Centre in Swanwick to hear about the swivel chair interaction that keeps jet-setting holidaymakers a safe distance from military aviators.
We're here at Swanwick, the home of NATS and of RAF operations here. How does the RAF integrate and the military integrate with the work that NATS do here on a day-to-day basis?
Well, intimately is the simple answer to that. Everything we do, from our air traffic control in the area control room, the terminal control room, D&D, airspace management, pretty much every facet of our squadron is joined and integrated with NATS. Probably outside of our air defence capabilities, but even those, we ensure that we train and bring NATS into those training ventures and into that delivery so that everything we do is seamless from end to end.
And from a NATS point of view, Brian, how important is it to have a co-located site?
Hugely important and also quite unique. There isn't anywhere else in the world that I can think of that does this in the same way that the UK does it. And the benefits are massive.
You talk about the benefits. What specifically are they?
So certainly within the job of air traffic control, which, let's face it, is a bit of a mystery to the average person. If I was to walk down a high street and ask somebody what an air traffic controller does, the normal answer is you're the people at the airports with the bats, marshalling aircraft. Not quite, but the nature of the role is such that being able to have face-to-face conversations rather than conversations over a telephone line is absolutely critical to delivering both the civil task and the military task.
Air traffic control, at its basic form, I'm guessing, is similar whether you're in the military or in civilian world, but there are differences, and there are differences in the way, I'm guessing, that the organisations work. Does that present special problems, or is it just something that you manage to overcome?
We manage them together. It presents challenges, clearly. Air traffic control is a large banner for almost any control that happens within aviation by our ground component. However, what we do as two organisations is fundamentally different. And it's in fundamentally different airspace. It's when the airspace starts to overlap and the lines begin to blur, that's when what we call swivel chair interaction, the ability to just turn around and talk to somebody, that's when it becomes critical. And a real good example of that is, for years, our area radar units now have collaborated together under one roof. But fairly recently, in the last 10 years, we brought Northall Radar, the terminal ATC element of Northall Radar, into the building because of the need to have that swivel chair interaction with critical pieces of airspace, busy pieces of airspace, Thames, Heathrow, etc. And the benefits that we've seen from that, both from the military and from NATS, have been incredible and real tangible benefits that we can hang our hat on and say that this is a good operating model.
Brian, you're ex-Royal Air Force yourself. You've moved over. You're with NATS. Now, just give us a brief outline of what NATS is as an organisation.
So NATS is an air navigation service provider providing air traffic control services within airspace in the UK flight information region. So there are two parts to the business. We've got the en route regulated part of the business, which is what takes place here at Swanwick, and we've got the NAT Services Limited, which is the airport side of the house, where it's not regulated, and we compete in the open market to provide air traffic control services. So we provide tower controllers to the main airports within the UK: Heathrow, Gatwick, Stansted, Luton, Birmingham. We've just taken the contract, Southampton, so places like that. But area radar control, so that's radar control from the ground up to flight level 450,
45,000 feet.
45,000 feet is controlled in this building, and effectively it's the airspace. If you were to draw a line from Manchester to East Midlands Airport, everything south of that is in this building. Everything north of it is controlled in our other centre at Prestwick.
When you moved over from your RAF controller career to NATS and the civilian side, were there huge differences, or was it a broadly similar approach to things?
It's broadly similar, but there are, as you would expect, differences. As Taff has alluded, the task is different. So it's very regimented civil air traffic control. But we operate wholly in controlled airspace. So we know who everybody is, and they must comply with the instructions that we give them. It's slightly different in controlling military aircraft because the task is different.
So if we just look at 78 Squadron itself, give us a breakdown of the structure of 78. And when somebody is posted to Swanwick with 78, what kind of roles can they undertake? What's here?
That's a real difficult question to answer. So 78 Squadron itself, where have we come from? So we're historically an area radar unit. We moved across from West Drayton some years ago, and part of the squadron then moved down from Prestwick when we closed RAF Prestwick. And that has been the story of the creation, the product that is 78 Squadron today. Across the air operations profession, we have every element of it under one building. So quite difficult to define. If you look at my mission statement, that will tell you why it's so long, because it's very difficult to be inclusive of every element of the squadron, but keep things succinct. I normally define this as a multifaceted air operations squadron that has reached to almost every element of military aviation and a lot of civil aviation as well. And I know you're going to go through the whole team today, which is great, and that's really important to me. It's really important to me we get the message out of we're not just an area radar unit anymore. Of course, the area radar part of our operation is very important, but roughly only half of my staff work towards that area radar delivery, whether it's the radar analysis cell, the airspace management cells. And as you go through today, what I hope you'll see is that joint or integrated approach. We have a series of interface documents and supporting criteria with NATS. But what does that mean in reality? What it means is we generally sit side by side and we interact and we create that air traffic picture every single day.
Recently, we had the flypast in London. Are you involved in that when those things happen?
Oh, from the very beginning, from the very, very earliest planning stages, which is absolutely critical. When you look at the London TMA,
TMA being
terminal maneuvering
area.
So basically, stuff in the airspace moving around.
Absolutely, the busiest pieces of airspace that we have, and across the whole of Europe. You look at the London TMA, and it is probably, if not the busiest, one of the busiest pieces of airspace in the whole of Europe. To be able to manoeuvre within that area and have freedom of manoeuvre within that area, we have to be in that planning stage from the very beginning and work with NATS to ensure that we minimise disruption. Every delay, every cost is a cost to the airlines, and therefore a cost to NATS. So we must ensure that we minimise that to the nth degree. And the recent success, and we've got ourselves down now to a fine art in every single flypast we do throughout London.
Let's just look at that in its broadest terms. So you've got aircraft. So on a display day, you've got aircraft moving at different speeds. You've got the Lancaster bomber. You've got F-35s. Everything in between. So you've got the different airspeeds of aircraft to integrate. Plus, you're trying to move it all through a busy piece of airspace. Anyway, where does that planning start?
From a desktop and getting all the entities around the table. Now, we've been doing this for a number of years, and we're very used to doing. We have a pretty good model. Where it first started, a very, very good question, and some very intelligent people have managed to work this through. we refine the plan every single time that we run through this, because every event is subtly different, whether it's a V flypast or it's a King's Birthday flypast or a Coronation flypast. Whatever the event, they're always subtly different. And of course, the weather has a huge impact on what we can do and what we can't do in serviceability, availability of aircraft. So we plan for almost every eventuality, and getting us into that early stage is important. We will have planning cycles to hold aircraft off in certain areas to make sure that they all come together in a perfectly choreographed manner that, again, looks great to the public, but minimises disruption to civil air traffic.
And bringing them in is one thing, and there's lots of people I know on social media watching on things like Flight Radar as you were coming in. In they come, they do the fly past, and then they come out the other side, and then you've got to do something with the other side to get them all back safely. That job is off.
Oh, absolutely. The exit plan is critical. In some ways, holding aircraft off in certain patterns in certain places and choreographing them all beautifully down the mile is the easy part. It's ensuring that exit plan, when aircraft do have different requirements at different speeds, at different heights, to go to different locations, that is a huge part of the challenge for the team. But as I say, we go through weeks and weeks and weeks of planning to ensure with the squadrons, with the leads for each squadron, for the leads for each aircraft type, to ensure that everybody is on the same page, everybody understands the plan. And when we get to the day of execution, it's executed perfectly by my team, again, in a very joint way with our NATS controller colleagues.
There's obviously a huge team of people involved in planning and the execution, as you say. Is there one person on the day who's making the call that maybe the weather, the cloud base is too low or whatever? Whose decision is that ultimately?
I mean, there's always an exercise coordinator, so that sits well outside the squadron, and that's a central entity within the Air Force who will ensure that go no go call is made, and that can be dependent on a numerous amounts of factors, and the weather is probably the biggest call of that. And we've seen in recent years where the weather has seriously limited what we're able to get down, the cloud base being too low for some aircraft. That central body will make that executive decision where we go on which plan we're a go for, whether it's the poor weather plan or whether it's the full display, or even at times if the weather could be too bad. Unfortunately, we haven't had that situation where it's a complete no-go. But yeah, somebody will tell us what plan to execute, and the team are prepped, ready to go to execute whichever plan we're told to execute.
So you just go to plan C, whatever it may be, fit in off your
plan A, plan B, and if there is a plan C, we'll go to that. But generally, plan A, plan B, good weather, poor weather, and we'll execute what we need to on the day. But that's all sorted from the planning process. Tabletops to run-throughs, and we have an execution run-through plan as well to ensure that on the day is not the first time we've done this. We've gone through it. We've got the right people in the right place, and we've managed to work everything from a desk level, an admin level, that plays out in reality exactly as we want it to.
It must be a great thing when you spent all that time planning, working through. What's it like? What does it feel like when you sit back on the day and you watch it and it happens and it goes to plan?
I mean, incredible. I'll be honest, I'm not normally here on the day for that execution, but one of my execs my head of operations is almost always within the building, and we have one of our flight lieutenants is normally in charge of that planning, and he will always be in for the execution day. I sit and I watch it at home, knowing that my team are involved and ensuring that this goes through. And when I watch it on the BBC normally, it fills you with immense pride to see that all go off absolutely beautifully, knowing that there's probably a lot of carnage going on in the background to ensure that what everybody sees on the day, that looks perfect. Nothing goes absolutely to plan. There's always something that will throw us, and it's the flexibility and the agility of thought of the team to be able to execute that looks seamless, and then we'll work out afterwards what could we have done better next time. What went wrong? How did it go wrong? But normally, it's just fine-tuning what is already a very good plan.
Just to echo what Taff has said, any fly past really highlights the joint and integrated approach between 78 Squadron and NATS, and more importantly, the coordination required, not just in the planning stage, but actually tactically on the day, because our raison d'etre is to provide a safe and orderly and expeditious, and all air traffic controllers will know what that means, service to the flying public and to our customers who are the airliners. So what is key in an event such as a fly pass, which comes right down over central London, that will obviously impact flights in and out of Heathrow. So our job, working alongside 78 Squadron, is to minimise the impact to those people flying in and out of Heathrow. So that coordination is absolutely critical, so that we get the last lander before the first aircraft of the flypast arrives, and then the first civil lander after the last aircraft in the flypast has departed. And that works every single time, due to the close nature of the relationship between 78 Squadron and NATS.
Because at the end of the day, it's safety, but it's also financial. You're under pressure, I'm guessing, to make sure from the airlines and commercial users of your services to make sure that expedited, is to use your phrase again, done as quickly and effectively and safely as possible.
Of course, we're not in the business of delaying airliners and people going on their holidays. Nobody wants to be stuck at an airport when they want to be flying away to a beach somewhere. So that's absolutely critical in our role.
Or circling around over North Essex when they want to land and get home.
Absolutely.
And those flypasts sit directly within the West Bank area control at Swanwick. Squadron leader Ryan and Flight Lieutenant Matt told me a bit more about the flypasts and how they work in practice.
So I don't want to steal Matt's sandwiches here, so I'll probably defer to Matt for this one, because Matt is the guy for the past couple of years that has successfully ran and executed Kingsberthy flypast last year, V-Day flypast this year, and the most recent Kingsberthy flypast. So I'll hand to Matt for this one.
Yeah, I think my first piece of involvement in it almost starts not too long after Christmas. That's when we get the initial notifications of what's going to take place and on what day, roughly how many aircraft they're going to want to look to put over London and how much airspace that might require. So that makes sort of my first job, making sure that airspace is going to be available. The lead-in times we need to work with our colleagues here at NATS, with the Civil Aviation Authority, to make sure that that's going to be in place in time. That background work generally starts around about January, February.
And then I guess it ramps up as you get closer and closer. What kind of other organisations, both within Swanwick and exterior, are you liaising with to make that happen?
We have a number of sort of aircrew contacts down at mostly based out of RF Waddington, who lead the flypast from an aircrew planning perspective. So they're kind of my first liaisons out there. But there's also NATS staff who work here within Swanwick that we'll have meetings with to look at airspace from a planning point of view, and then the work with RF Waddington's generally from a tactical execution point of view.
Because you've got different aircraft coming in at different speeds. Obviously, you've got the Lancaster bomber and you've got F-35s, whatever it is. They're all coming in at different speeds with different expectations. Does that add an element of fun, shall we say?
It means everything has to be planned very much to a few seconds. So aircraft have got a 5 seconds either side of a given time that they have to be at certain
5 seconds.
Yeah.
Wow.
5 seconds and then plus or minus 10 knots at a given speed, so that when you see them over London with 45 seconds between each formation of aircraft, that actually starts over the North Sea at a 70, 80 mile stream of aircraft, with the ones at the front going the slowest, the ones at the back going the quickest. So by the time they've got to central London, they've bunched up, and that's the gap that you see.
And then obviously the flypast itself looks fantastic. It works. It's terrific to watch. But you've then got the little matter of getting them all back home again and back out of everybody else's way, commercial traffic.
Yeah, very much so. And that's where we get to do sort of our core bread and butter controlling piece. Everything up until that point is on this 5 second, 10 knot. You must be here at this time plan. But as soon as they've gone past the palace, it's then very much the controllers plugged in at the time to do their normal job and get the aircraft back to base as quick as they can. That's the point where the aircrew turn themselves over to us and take our direction.
So we had this initial meeting in January, then the V-Day flypast, whatever it may be, has happened. For you personally, how does it feel when that comes together?
It means I've got about 6 months off, so I've got to do it again.
But it must be a great feeling to know that one's gone and dusted before you pick up the books and start again.
I think, on a more serious point, the thing that I took the most away from it this year is that we were able to get a lot of new controllers who hadn't seen a flypast before into the controlling seats, both from the egress point of view and getting the aircraft in over London on time, and to give them the experience of having done that for the first time. I think was really rewarding for them to have done it, something they would have seen on the TV in previous years, and also to give us as a squadron an increased amount of resilience and knowledge within us of how to do it again next year.
And presumably you mentioned watching it on TV. your head's down watching screens and talking to other people. You probably don't get to see it until you go home and watch it on telly later, I'm guessing.
We do. We are able to set a TV screen on silent up in the option to have it over there, because not every controller is speaking to the aircraft all at once. So, and it also gives us the confidence that, right, that's where they are. It has worked correctly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now we can start the egress process.
Start that. One of the other things we talked about, flypasts, obviously air shows. Reheat, the Royal International Air Tattoo, is inbound right now as we record this toward the end of June. That must be another big thing, because again, it's 4 or 5 days. We talk about flypasts, that's a few hours of culmination, but Reheat's 4 or 5 days, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. I think what people see when either on the TV or they go to the air show itself, they see the flypast in all its glory, which is fantastic. For us, particularly on the west sector here at Swanwick, other sectors do feel it a little bit, but west definitely feel the brunt of it with regards to the traffic in and out. Normally about a week leading up to it, starting on round about the Monday leading up to it, whereas the air show starts on the Friday, we normally start getting traffic in from there. It's a mixture of what we call GAT and OAT. That's general air traffic versus operational air traffic. GAT is flying along civil air routes, normally worked by civil air traffic controllers. OATs then normally work by us, the mill, so it's handed over from mill to mill agencies. And as you can appreciate, because Reheat hosts a variety of nations all around the world, aircraft are coming from all different directions, all different types of complexities, different speeds. We've had anything from display teams coming across the southeast doing 200 knots to single fast jets that are pretty quick coming in from different directions to heavy aircraft. We've had all sorts. The week leading up to it can be pretty busy. It's also a little bit of a blessing in disguise for us, because one of our trickiest sectors to endorse in is the southeast sector, which is predominantly all over London. So it provides great training benefit for us for both training and endorsements, and also consolidation, as Matt alluded to earlier. Probably the busiest time for Reheat by far is what we locally call Departure Day, and that's the Monday afterwards. So on the Sunday, we normally get a flying programme sent from Fairford and Bryce Norton of this is what's planned to go, rough timings, and then the nominated duty air trafficker the day before on the Sunday afternoon into the evening. Job is to go through the flying programme and highlight what is likely to affect us. There's some stuff that will depart Fairford and that will go straight into airways and won't even touch us. And there's other stuff that we can even look at through experience and say, straight away, that's not going to work. A lot of times we need acceptance from other agencies. So if they're going off to France, for example, we need acceptance before they even get off the ground. So there's lots to coordinate. We normally try and put 2 supervisors on that day, just to try and deal with the amount of traffic, because whilst that's going on, we've still got a day-to-day job to do as well.
And then throw the weather into that, which at the end of Reheat usually clags up and starts raining just before.
A lot of it as well is, I'll use the term wheeling and dealing. Sometimes an aircraft might want to go from A to B, for example, go off through Dutch airspace, and for whatever reason, the flight plan might not be filed correctly, or there might be issues. So then we might speak to our Belgian counterparts and say, if we route the aircraft via this point instead, can you help us out and take this aircraft? This is where it wants to go. We normally get it sorted. It's normally not a problem, but it just keeps adding layers of complexity to an already busy task.
Back with the OC of 78 Squadron and Brian Wheeler of NATS, I asked Wing Commander Evans what makes a good air traffic controller.
It's a really difficult question, because we are a broad spectrum of people. The task, military air traffic is a very bizarre task. As Brian touched on earlier, what NATS do is very procedural, and what they have to do is they have to assimilate huge amounts of information and store knowledge about aircraft performance, about the weather, about emergency procedures, and they learn all of that. We operate in a very, very different environment. Class G airspace, which is open airspace to everybody.
So when we talk open airspace, that's literally pilots operating under their own steam, as it were.
And anyone can operate within that, from gliders to somebody with a little Cessna, up to the large aircraft, but clearly very, very, very infrequently what we would call commercial flight. That would be very rare for them to be operating in Class G, unless for some reason we have what we call derogated services between the two agencies, between the RAF and NATS, where we will support where we can, and within capacity we will support civilian flight to increase that flexibility of airspace usage. But for us, it's open season, it's banded country. Anything is out there. Therefore, we control in a much less procedural way and a much more reactive way. So having agility of thought, being able to rapidly make decisions, being able to assimilate huge amounts of information very quickly based on what is evolving in front of you. And I'll probably go all the way down to, if you're pretty good at computer games, you're probably going to be pretty good at military air traffic control, because it's that ability to assimilate information very quickly and be positive in your control and be able to make snap decisions based on exactly what's in front of you.
And from somebody listening to this moment at the moment, maybe thinking of a career in the Air Force and thinking, traffic's something I hadn't really considered. What are the attractions? What are the things that you get from that career?
It's diversity across that task. No 2 days look the same, and across our whole profession. As an air traffic control, and the air traffic control element of what we sit under, what is the AC2 force, the Air Command and Control Force, and we are just one part of the wider profession. But as far as air traffickers go, you can join as an air traffic controller. You can do terminal, what we call terminal radar, so small range, close in, generally centralizing around an airfield. But that can range from a fast jet squadron where it's punchy, it's fast, and you've got to make quick decisions, to a rotary squadron where slower but bring in significantly other challenges to it, and normally a lot more dense, bring in a lot more what we would call conflicting aircraft. To someone like Brize Norton was Class D airspace, was slightly more controlled airspace, but being our important central hub and our central gateway. So even from a terminal radar perspective, there's huge challenges. And it was somewhere like an RF Boscombe Down, where you have multiple different types, and you're mixing fast jets with other types of aircraft, and that those different speeds, different performance is a real challenge. And of course, you come to us, which I believe is extremely unique in that area radar environment, where it's the whole of the UK and both FIRs, flight information regions across the UK. It's a real challenge. And then, of course, that integration with NAT and with our civilian colleagues, crossing airway structures, understanding the different types of airspace, understanding the different rules and regulations that go in there, a real challenge. So every single day is different. Every single day will feel rewarding, and something that you don't always get in life, that constant job satisfaction.
Great answer. Brian, I'll come back to you. Let's look at the different sort of in its basic forms, the different types of control, the different types of jobs that they do. So let's say probably the easiest way to explain is you've got a pilot about to start the engines and go somewhere. Just talk us through the different people that will speak to you through that process.
Okay, and this, by the way, is similar, if not the same, for both military and civil. So when you start your aeroplane at an international airport, you need to get permission to move it on the airfield. So you're speaking to a controller who is known as the ground controller. They will give you a clearance to push the aircraft back and to start taxiing. You taxi the aircraft to the runway. The permission to take off from that runway is given by a tower controller. That is the same, civil and military. Once the aircraft is airborne and leaves the confines of the airfield, you then start speaking to radar controllers. The difference is... there's just the nomenclature, if I can never get that word right, but nomenclature is different. So in the military, it's an approach controller. In the civil world, you're now speaking to a terminal area controller, which is what happens here at Swanwick. But as we've said before, it's all very regimented. So every aircraft that departs Heathrow climbs to the same altitude. They all climb to 6,000 feet. That is what they all do. It doesn't matter which direction they're going, but the direction they're going dictates who they speak to next. And then the radar controller then has a job to do, and that job will depend on the sector, and that will be climb the aircraft from 6,000 feet to another level, and then transfer the aircraft to another air traffic controller who then does a little bit more climb, and so on and so forth, and then transfer the aircraft to wherever it's going, be that off to Europe or off to our colleagues in Scotland to cross the Atlantic Ocean. And it's the same coming back the other way. You speak to the area radar controllers at high level, and then I'm doing the thing, you can't see this, but I'm doing the air traffic and talking with my hands. And then as you get lower down and closer to the airfield, within 40 miles, you speak to the approach controller, and then you speak to the final director. That's similar as well. The Air Force has directors. They position the aircraft onto the final approach, And once the aircraft's established on final approach, they're then transferred to the tower controller for the landing clearance. So tower controllers can only issue landing and takeoff clearances. They're the only controllers who can do that. And then once you're on the ground, you're transferred again to the ground controller, who gives you taxi instructions back to where you're going to park.
So it's a bit like an ice cream cone, think of it like that, I guess, with the top of the cone being radar and everything else coming down to approach and then onto ground at the bottom of the cone.
It's almost like an aerial relay where the aircraft's a baton, and you transfer the baton from person to person.
Finally, for yourself, one of the other areas that obviously the RAF, the military flying generally are concerned of is low-level flying and everything else. So what difficulties does that bring? Because obviously there are low-level routes and people know where they are. If you live in the southwest and there's the loop and other things that people will be familiar with, does that present extra challenges to you?
It shouldn't, but it certainly does. About a number of years ago, and I struggle to remember how far back, low flying was done at RAF Wittering, and it was looked after by Squadron there for all low flying without the Air Force and the low flying system in itself. The low flying system is split into LFAs, low flying areas, and everybody should be making other flying agencies, especially within the military, aware of who is within what system, and we have systems that look after that. That was transferred down to what was then RAF Unit Swanwick, which now today is 78 Squadron. So that comes under our command. So traditionally an area radar unit, we would control 5,000 to 10,000 feet and above. We now across the squadron have that low level look as well, and it presents an enormous challenge. Of course, it's very congested airspace. It's uncontrolled in many ways. Although there's great deconfliction tools that can assist you, there is no single point of truth of who is within that low flying system at any one time. So our job is to ensure, as best we can, the safety of all aircraft in a low flying system, and we hold the rights, and along with other areas of the Air Force, on who has rights to go into what areas at what time, and we try and publish the avoids and areas to stay away from, and ensure that the heights and the dimensions of these are published to everybody to ensure that safe provision of flight. But the low flying system it can be a real challenge, much more for the aircrew than for us as a low flying squadron. But clearly, we play a key part in ensuring the safety within the low flying system.
Here at Swanwick now, we're with something called MAMC. I'm going to profess straight away that I don't know what that is, but I've got some people here who can help me, hopefully. So just introduce yourself and tell me what MAMC is.
Flight Attendant Ed Turner. I'm WAC3 Flights, and I run the Managed Airspace Cell as part of the Military Airspace Management Cell on 78 Squadron. We have a number of different elements to this. So we have the Managed Airspace section, who deal with segregating airspace for military activity from civil activity. We also have the low flying section, who deal with booking people into the low flying network. And we also deal with handing back airspace to the civil guys on a daily basis with level 3 management as well.
When you talk about level 3 management, what does that mean?
Level 3 management, so if level 2 management is dealing with segregating airspace the day before, level 3 management is on the day.
How much of the work that you do evolves around planning and preparation before the thing, and how far in advance do you publish that information?
So the majority of it occurs the day before, and I think Luke can talk more about that.
Yes, so in managed airspace, we predominantly work D-1, which means the day before activity. How far in advance we get bookings? So we've got a system we call it LARA. So it's an online system where squadrons input all their airspace bookings, and we have access to that, and every squadron has access to that as well. So everyone can see what each other are doing in real time, and we use that system to approve bookings the day before the activity.
What sort of factors come into play when somebody, a squadron comes to you and says, we want to do some low flyings, and what sort of things do you have to weigh up?
So first of all, there are set areas around the UK that they're able to book. So they'll book into those areas. They'll give us their times, their start time, their end time in that area, and they'll give us their heights as well. So their lower operating height and their upper operating height.
When we talk about managed airspace from an RAF perspective, from a military flying perspective, what sort of heights are we looking at?
So with managed airspace, we work from 2,000 feet right the way up to unlimited, we call it, so 66,000 feet, where no more civil aircraft can be flying
At that point, presumably, because we've now got UK space ops and everything else, and presumably that's where they step in then, is it?
Yeah, exactly that. So you could say we're capped at 66,000 feet.
And handing over.
So yeah, there are a number of types of activities that we have to block this activity off so that it doesn't get in the way of also the civil aircraft then interact with it. So it's not just fast jet squadrons practicing their tactical daily business. It's also ships firing missiles or guns, and then land rangers as well if they're firing mortars, for example, and going up to 10,000 feet. You don't want anything flying through that, which is the type of activity. And the reason why we have these large swathes of segregated airspace, there's a couple of areas that are at least the size of Scotland. And we need to make sure that they're separated to prevent the civil guys from flying through there and coming into contact with fast jets, conducting high-energy manoeuvres, and ultimately making sure they're safe and making sure that our guys get what we need.
And presumably, like everything else, it's a trade-off. You're based here at Swanwick, you're working alongside civilian counterparts. Everything from a civilian world is about money and stuff, so presumably there's a trade-off between not pushing aircraft out of the way too far.
There is, actually. So we work in a very joint and integrated way with our civil counterparts. So we are part of the airspace management cell, half of which is NATS employees, and they deal with design of certain areas and managing it. And we sit on the other side. So I work for, my boss is the military airspace manager, and he works alongside the civil airspace managers. And at the point at which you have a conflict of interest, then those guys will get together and discuss the merits of what needs to happen, and either activate, deactivate airspace or see who needs to use it as well.
Is there much pressure comes on you from the commercial side? Because obviously they want to get things presumably open again as soon as you can do it, but you've got to make sure it's safe.
Yeah, I mean, opening up routes that are more direct saves them money. It's also good for the environment as well, and that's what we try to achieve. We try very hard, and we have a constant churn of improvements, whether it be modernisation, automation as well, especially reducing the amount of people inputs that we have into this system of segregating airspace, so that we can do it quicker and safer. And the safer we can do it, the quicker we can do it, the more often we can do it, and the more flexible we can use the airspace, which means that the civil guys can get what they need more often. Yeah.
Let's turn to low flying as a thing. When we describe low flying, we've heard that the other things pick up from 3,000 feet onwards. What are we describing when we talk about low flying?
So when it comes to low flying, we're dealing with any sort of area activity from surface ground level to 2,000 feet. And the importance of this is it's a mandatory currency for pilots to have that awareness and practice flying at low level, and especially useful in austere environments, especially away on deployments. So the low flying cell is divided into 21 different areas, and that goes all the way from the bottom of England to the top of Scotland. And that also includes, places such as the Mac Loop and Lake District in Cumbria, which are divided into low-flying Area 7 and 17 respectively. So in terms of this, we also run a day and a night system. Night flying requires a lot more deconfliction to the day because obviously there's visibility is greatly reduced. As well as this, we'll deal with helping plan exercises, any that are relevant to the low flying system again, but also promulgate something called NOTAMs, which I'm sure anyone that works in...
This is notices to airmen.
Yeah, notices to airmen. Anyone that works in the aviation community or is an aviation hobbyist, I'm sure they're aware of what they are, and we'll deal from anything from paragliding activity to underslung loads to even helping promulgate avoids for music events such as Glastonbury and... well-known equestrian of
Formula One or whatever, that kind of thing. Yeah,
we haven't had a Formula One.
Oh, okay. Watch this space.
It'd be cool if it was. Yeah, we've promulgated NOTAMs to cranes and stuff like the Aston Martin factory and things like that. We also have a lot of involvement with civil organisations, so like the RSPB, for example, Royal Society of Protection of Birds, for putting avoids around their sites as well.
Those are like nesting birds and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
For like massive sites as well, and it's down to us to get the coordinates and the exact positions correctly so low-flying aircraft can avoid them. In terms of deconfliction then, so we run a system called Centralised Aviation Data Service, and that is specifically for military low-flying aircrews and their ability to do their flight planning. Obviously, Class G airspace...
is an airspace to anyone.
Yeah, it's in an uncontrolled environment, so air traffic controllers aren't actively controlling them. The only way they can really maintain a deconfliction is visually or through a common frequency in megahertz. So yeah, essentially, CADS aids in their flight planning, it acts as a visual deconfliction tool.
What is a HAZCAD?
Centralized Aviation Data Service. And essentially, what it does, visual flight planning tool for all the pilots and air crews so they can deconflict with one another. Especially helpful as well because it's a play function. They can play it, watch their sortie in live time. If there is a confliction, the system will automatically pause on that confliction so they can then route around it. You've also got other agencies as well. You've got pipeline inspections. You've got the SAR Coast Guard helicopters.
National Grid, people like that as well.
Yeah, you've got National Grid helicopters. And you've also got the National Police Air Service as well that have the ability to use it.
You mentioned a couple of words a moment ago, and I'm going to throw them back into the loop. You'll see what I did there. The Mach Loop is probably the most famous low flying zone that we have in the UK. Is it also a really popular one for air crews to operate in as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure people have seen it on YouTube all the time. And it is a spectacular area of the United Kingdom. And it's amazing to watch from. I've never done it myself, but I've seen videos on YouTube. The Mach Loop is located within Low Flying Area 7, so it's not an individual area itself. But there are ways of maintaining that safety for it. And again, it's through Centralized Aviation Data Service. When you're planning your flight, you can put waypoints on your sortie. And when the crews are inputting the flights for Mach Loop, for an example, they can pop a waypoint on there and you can add a comment next to it saying that you're going to be in the Mach Loop. There are rules as well which pertain to the Mach Loop. I don't know whether you want me to go into them.
And presumably which direction you go in as much as anything.
So you have to fly, so their rule is they can only fly counterclockwise for it, a counterclockwise direction, up to 2 times.
Oh, and then they get kicked out. That's it. You've had your go, basically.
Yeah, more or less. It's just more of kind of an etiquette rule to follow. There isn't like an official rule separating military aircraft and civilian aircraft. So it's really, especially during the weekday, it's kind of a fly in there at your own risk. There isn't a specific rule or NOTAM, or it's not a danger area where you could pop a NOTAM out and it excludes aircraft from flying in there. Such.
Yeah, I was going to say there's also an element of low flying as well that deals with when somebody wants to put up a wind farm or an obstacle that might get in the way. It will come through low flying as well, and they'll filter out to see whether it's reasonable or not, or if it's going to be unsafe, cause a hazard, or stop us from using the low flying system as well. And so we segregate between sort of 2 helicopters in the low-flying system, or obstacles and aircraft, and the low-flying system, all the way up to segregating the vast volume of traffic that flows from Europe to America, essentially, as part of the plan that we produce, that feeds into the plan for Europe as well, the airspace usage plan on a daily basis that enables all the carriers across Europe to flight plan around our danger areas. That's the extent of what we do.
You mentioned Europe. Do you fit in with Eurocontrol as well? Do you work closely with them?
Yeah, Luke, you're probably better talking about that.
Yes, so our airspace plan we build, we have to send that off to Eurocontrol. We do this so that they're able to segregate the airspace from civil use, so we can distinguish between what areas can be used for military and which areas are going to be open for civil flight planning. So when we send our plan over to Eurocontrol, which we need to do by 1500 local, so that they can do everything they need to on their end.
So when we hand back airspace as well, so for example, if there's a squadron that's using the Delta 323 complex in the North Sea, a huge area size of Scotland goes from 5,000 feet in the centre all the way up to space, essentially, flight level 660. If they decide they've finished early or the weather's not fit for what they're going to do in that area, they can hand that back, and we can hand that back and allow civil aircraft to route through there for hours. But to be able to achieve that, so we then have to update the airspace usage plan via UUP, and this is what these guys do. We'll make sure that the airspace isn't going to be used, and then we'll request an updated usage plan slots.
Yes, so the updated usage plan slots, they come in every half an hour. So when we get a hand back, it can be done every half an hour, releasing that airspace back for civil use. And once that's been submitted, civil are then able to flight plan through those areas, and it allows for more flexible use of that airspace.
AS1 Luke Horner there, along with Swanwick-based MAMC colleagues AS1 Bailey Papui and Flight Lieutenant Edward Turner. Finally, for this episode, we'll head back to the West Bank Area Control Team with Squadron Leader Ryan and Flight Lieutenant Matt.
How does the RAF split UK airspace up for air traffic control purposes? Here's Matt again.
So from an area control point of view, we split the country essentially into 3 segments. So we have Northbank controllers who work everything up in Scotland. We have Eastbank controllers who work everything over East Anglia and out into the North Sea. And then we have Westbank controllers who essentially cover everything else. So our area of responsibility is essentially the centre of England, Wales, and then southern England and southwest.
So you've got some interesting areas that come under your control as well, I guess.
Yeah, massively. So as Matt said, each bank has got their own complexities and their varying size. So pick up on what Matt said, North pretty much go around from Prestwick all the way around to Newcastle, right to the edge of the flight information regions. Biggest bank geographically by far. East Bank cover Newcastle down to pretty much where Lakenheath is in the East Anglian area. The busiest bank by far. Probably the smallest, but the busiest by a country mile, because that's where the majority of the fast jet bases are located, especially with the Americans as well. And then West is somewhere in the middle, in between the size of East and North, and but complexity, probably the most complex, again, by far. We cover from Prestwick down to the Scillies across to Dover and everything in between. So it is pretty complex, especially the southeast sector.
It's probably a really silly question, but is there such a thing as a typical day for a controller working the West Bank zone?
There's typical tracks. Not necessarily. I don't think any day is typical here at Swanwick. Generally, it's not a cliche. There really isn't. You have routine tracks that you're expected to work, and you know when you get what we call a pre-note, a pre-notification of an aircraft wishing to do a certain move, you'll get pre-note of an aircraft to go and do X, Y, Z. I think, I've seen this before. I've been here 9 years and I still have days in the seat where I've not seen this before. The principles are the same, but a particular track, there's always stuff you haven't seen before. I don't know about yourself, Matt.
I'm having one of them today.
Yeah.
Go on.
We're taking part in a air defence exercise that's taking place across sort of central northern England, working with 19 Squadron of Bulmer. So it's been a complex morning of deconflicting some of the airspace with our civil colleagues to get the renegade aircraft, so the aircraft performing as the enemies, and working that around all the civil traffic that's going on.
Is it a 24-hour shift rotation pattern for you guys? Or
So we're open 24/7. We have people who do work shifts, so either overnight, mornings, or and then the afternoons into the evenings, which is pretty similar to how our civil counterparts work. But we supplement that with people working during the day, which is our busiest time as well.
So let's assume you're coming in to take over a shift. How does it work in terms of a practical handover between whoever was sitting at the desk before you?
So we come over to the desk that you're going to take over from, and then the off-going controller will give you a brief on everything that they're doing at the time, so any live traffic that they're working, and then they'll also tell you what is expected during the next hour or two that you may be plugged in, so you've got an idea of what's going to be coming up as well. So it's a live conversation that takes anything from a minute up to a few minutes, depending on how busy it is, to go through that process.
Presumably it must be quite a weird experience. You drive in, Swanwick is situated just off the M3 motorway, sort of running down the south between Southampton and Portsmouth. You come in 1 minute, you're in your car listening to the radio and doing family things, and the next minute suddenly you've got the headset on, you're picking up on a huge exercise or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And coupled with the facts of no day is the same. So when you come in, you don't know what you're going to be walking into. You have an appreciation because our planning process has got better, and it's getting better every day, and it's got better over the years. So we do have more appreciation of what we're going to expect on a day-to-day basis. We forecast further out on what we're going to be expecting. But again, sometimes you can get ad hoc stuff that you just don't know is going to occur. There might be a bunch of fast jets that's gone low-level training, and then they call you up and you're not expecting it. That increases your workload. But yeah, you're right, switching from one environment to another. But it's the same as being in the building itself. You could have associated duties. You've been in office on a Teams call, a Skype call, or you could be knee-deep in writing reports or whatever it may be, and then a call comes through, and can you come through to the ops room and support? And you go and support wherever required.
Part of training, obviously, involves expecting the unexpected, if I can use that phrase. There's an exercise going on today. Will an element of that be testing you as well, or are you there to support the exercise as it happens?
We're primarily here to support the exercise, but we always use it as a really good training opportunity for our new controllers, to get them qualified and experienced in certain positions to do with with these air defence exercises that we don't see on a day-to-day basis, but also as continuation training and deepening experience for those of us who are qualified and have been here for a while. Because everything we do is a very perishable skill in the Optrum. So whilst we do have like a minimum amount of currency we have to get over a certain month or period of time, anytime there's an opportunity to see something live rather than the simulator, that's always really good to get different people in the seats for.
In the next episode of Inside Air, we'll be back at Swanwick to look at the work of a unique section, the Distress and Diversion Cell, as well as how the RAF integrate traffic in and out of Northolt with the busy Heathrow area, air defence control, and the thorny subject of drones.
With Reheat for Inside Air, I'm Corporal Victoria Andrews. Air Chief Marshal Sir Rich Knighton has been confirmed as the new Chief of the Defence Staff for the UK's Armed Forces, taking over in September of this year. As the most senior military officer for the nation, he will be charged with driving military strategy to keep Britain safe at home and abroad. His appointment has prompted the announcement of Air Marshal Harv Smith as his successor as Chief of the Air Staff, a former frontline Harrier pilot. As head of the Royal Air Force, he will be responsible for the strategic planning and delivery of all RAF operations, people and capability. Exercise Atlantic Trident has taken place in Finland for the first time, demonstrating NATO's influence and strength in the High North and Finland's deepening integration into NATO. RAF Typhoon pilots and aircraft engineers from the Global Readiness Wing, RAF Lossiemouth, and 140 Expeditionary Air Wing, who are currently deployed on Operation Chessman in Poland, all took part, supported by the RAF Regiment from 3 Force Protection Wing. The Protector RG Mark I has entered service as the first remotely piloted air system authorised to fly in UK airspace. The Protector programme introduces a unique and long-endurance asset to UK defence, specialising in intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition and reconnaissance, as well as strike operations. The King's Colour Squadron have undertaken public duties at the Tower of London, replacing the usual Foot Guards rotation by providing the King's Guard. The King's Colour Squadron is the RAF's dedicated ceremonial unit, uniquely combining a prestigious ceremonial role while delivering force protection for RAF operations worldwide. And the Royal International Air Tattoo has taken place at RAF Fairford, demonstrating the RAF's ability to protect the skies and continue to be operationally ready. That's Reheat on Inside Air.
I'm AS1 Ben Russell, and this is Under the Hat, where we get to know an aviator in less than a minute. Name you're known by.
AS1 Katie, I don't think I've got a nickname. Well, not that I know about.
What's your profession?
So I'm an RAF medical reservist and I'm based in 612 Squadron.
What's the best thing about your job?
Best thing about my job is the joint training and the other medical professions I get to work with.
Hardest part of your job?
Hardest part of the job can sometimes be managing it around my civilian job and making time.
Best location you've served?
I've been on an Eagle scheme in the Robson Resilience Centre in Bavaria. That was the best place I've ever been because I got to try new activities.
What bit of luxury kit do you never deploy without?
An eye mask and earplugs because I need to get good sleep.
And what's your proudest moment in the RAF?
When I got top recruit at my basic training.
Thank you for being the latest aviator to take part in Under the Hat.
That's all for this episode of Inside Air. Please give us a review and subscribe on your favourite podcast app, and join us again soon.
You've been listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations. If you're serving in the RAF and have a story for us, please speak to your unit media and communications officer. Inside Air is written and produced for the Royal Air Force by RAF Media Reserves.